Hi, this is Jennifer Clemens, and I am presenting my leadership research analysis. The problem I'm investigating is dual enrollment in early college high schools. So my first question is, what is dual enrollment? Dual enrollment occurs while a student takes high school or college courses while they're still in high school. Here, the students are dually enrolled because they earn credits towards our high school degree while they're also completing college credits. This is traditionally offered instead of our traditional honors, AP, or international baccalaureate classes. Most of our dual enrollment courses have started with honor students that they may take, instead of their senior level English, instead of an AP English, they might take English 101 at a local high school. We're seeing a lot more research that's going into targeting those middle achieving students or even low achieving students. And there's some research gains that we've seen that will help better prepare those middle and low achieving students to transition into college. A dual enrollment can be offered in several different locations. Courses can be offered at the high school. In some cases, the local high school teacher will be their instructor, and the students in the class are all high school students. While also located on the high school, we can have the college instructor come to the high school, where you're still having a class full of only high schoolers, but we're bringing in an instructor from the college to teach that course. We can have a mixed class where students are coming to the college, high school students are coming to the college, and they are matriculating into the regular college level courses. In this case, the instructor might not even know that some of those students are high school students. And finally, we can have a type of a dual enrollment where the students travel to the college, but they have their own class where it's only their classmates taking classes at the college. And I've taught several of these types of dual enrollment courses. Right now I'm working on a pathway program at some area high schools where we have this purple location at the college, instructor at the college, dual enrollment pathway. I've also taught this pink, where I had some high school students in my class I didn't know until halfway through the semester. And finally, while I was teaching at a different college, I taught I actually traveled to the local VOTEC and offered a class where I only had the high schoolers in the high school in their classroom, but I traveled from the college and taught the same curriculum. So one of the concerns is funding and how dual enrollment is funded in Delaware. It varies by district, and it can even vary by course within the same school. So in some cases there's grant funded from the high school, and in other cases there's grant funded from the college. Right now I have a program where we have received a grant, our college has received a grant, and we're offering dual enrollment courses to area high schools. And finally, in some cases, the student or the parent has to pay the tuition for the course. So while working on this program, working on this project for my ELP, I've selected several articles as per the assignment to talk about leadership. So one of the first articles I found was grades 9 through 14 career pathways. In this career pathways article, they're talking about grades 9 through 14. And personally, I have a little attitude about that. A lot of schools, I teach at a community college, so a lot of times they talk about community college being grades 13 and 14, and obviously that's how this paper was referring to associate's degree education after that. But they were really looking at building a network between the college and the high school and really growing a career pathway for young people into high growth fields such as STEM, information technology, healthcare, and advanced manufacturing. And the paper really talks about some levers for implementation, and they talked about a couple key ones: supportive state policies, the 9 through 14 career pathways, career information and advising systems, work-based learning and employer engagement, and some intermediaries. So because of this, I really wanted to talk about team leadership in this paper. And many of the papers I read for this, I think team leadership applied, but I tried to apply all of the different, some of the different leadership strategies we've learned about in this class, but I think team leadership really applies to many of these. Because this paper is really talking about the relationship between the high school and community college, to create this pathway, I feel like that this paper really has the clear and elevating goal that we would see in team leadership. And also because students are exposed to a wide range of career options, and they're exposed to these career options by talking to employers, industry groups, community-based organizations. I think this is a really good example of competent team members, because you need to have the right members on your team for it to be successful. And finally, they talked about employers collaborate with educators. And I really think this was a good example of creating that collaborative climate. The collaborative climate is one in which members can stay focused, listen to and understand one another, and feel free to take risks, be willing to compensate for one another. So I think this was a really good example of where the team leadership qualities come into play. For my second article, I read one about smoothing the transition to post-secondary education, the impact of the early college model. Now, I haven't done much with the early college high school. However, Delaware State, just a couple of miles down the road, does have an early college high school, and it's something I might be interested in working with in the future. In this case, this was a quantitative longitudinal study reported for 12 early colleges located in rural and urban North Carolina. This was a really big study. There were a lot of students in there. This early college high school, they begin in the 9th grade. And the researchers really looked at some subgroups of underrepresented minorities, first-generation college students, and low-income students. And they were able to show increased enrollment in post-secondary education as a result. So for my leadership theory here, again, I could really look at team leadership for all of these programs, but here I really looked at path goal leadership because they were really focused on the design goals of what early college is supposed to do and what they're really trying to instill in the students. So I think because this was really achievement-oriented leadership, I chose the path goal leadership theory for this article. For my third article, I found a really good qualitative study on inroads and impediments to access on early college and dual enrollment challenges. I learned a lot of this because it was a qualitative study, so there was a lot of anecdotal information from the interviews, and what I took away from this was really how not to do this. So some of the results we saw that there were a lot of communication gaps and miscommunication between and perceived differences of academic rigor. So what some of the teachers were reporting is that while the syllabus might say that the teacher needs to cover chapters 1 through 15, they were really only getting through the first 8 chapters or something like that. So there was some real challenges here. Again, this is an opportunity for some team leadership. There was not a very strong relationship between the college faculty and the high school teachers. However, in this case, I really wanted to look at situational leadership because I think programs like this could benefit from some coaching, a very high directive, high supportive environment from the administration and the school leaders. And some of the best practices that were reported in the paper were support from school leaders. So I think school leaders don't necessarily understand how much of their time might need to go into this. I know that my dean and the principal at the high school that I'm working with don't always understand how much extra time we're putting into this. There needs to be a lot of involvement between the college faculty to give the good coursework to the high school students and making sure it's consistent with what is taught at the college level. And there's going to be some extra effort but from both the high school teacher and the college faculty. In my case, it's not like I'm passing it off to an adjunct and expecting them to do it. I also need to check in with them, making sure they're being consistent with our guidelines as well as with the high school guidelines and what they're required to do. For my fourth article, I looked at an article on funding early college high school, and I was a little surprised by this. I've been supportive of the SEED program and really trying to expand the SEED program so that in Delaware so that students can take advantage of free community college. This article really looked at having the family contribute to footing the cost of this early college high school, and it was actually quite successful. So it really made me take a look at the funding sources from another side. So because the family was contributing, not completely, but at least partially towards this early college high school, it felt like the students were a little bit more successful. So in this case, I really wanted to take a look at the parents. And I wanted to look at the parents becoming leaders and under the authority compliance in the behavioral approach. In this case, the parents pay a portion of the tuition costs, which actually had a positive effect, as it gave families ownership over the program. Teachers contacted the parents via email and phone and were surprised that the parents were more willing to apply pressure since there was a financial commitment. They applied more pressure than they would if it was a traditional high school teacher calling mom to say, hey, your child isn't doing so well. Because there was this financial obligation, there was more commitment. And I chose that authority compliance because this leadership places heavy emphasis on task and job requirements and less emphasis on people. In this case, there was a financial incentive. The parents already paid this money to go take these classes. So if the students were not doing their work, they were kind of wasting that money. And I wanted to put this little quote here. This was from a student who actually paid for the courses, not his parents. And he said, I think I'd quit. It'd be a waste of money. I think if my mother paid for it, it'd be different. I'd still be getting a B, not like an A. I think I'd be less dedicated and I wouldn't be committing myself to everything, staying up later, studying and writing papers, something like that. But since I had to pay for it, and I really think this made me think about things in a different aspect. When students are given something for free, how much do they really value it? So maybe I kind of reconsider my stance on the SEED program. For my last article, I read about higher education's proposed role in community transformation through the federal Promise Neighborhood Policy. And this was a qualitative analysis of 21 Promise Neighborhood applications. The goal was to improve the educational and developmental outcomes of children in distressed communities. And they saw higher education institutions acting as leaders because they become engaged in the community. I chose transformational leadership for this article because of this policy was really looking at capacity building. And I feel like that the leadership here was trying to build new leaders within the community. So they're building capacity, sustainability, school improvement. So I chose transformational leadership because transformational leadership is improving the performance of followers and developing followers to their fullest potential. So my recommendations for school leaders who are looking at dual enrollment or early college high schools is really to take a look at team leadership. As I mentioned earlier, I felt that team leadership could have applied to just about every one of these articles that I read. However, I was trying to engage a variety of these leadership styles. I think it's really important to get the team members together as often as possible on a regular basis. I'm working with Smyrna High School and we meet once a month. Not usually face-to-face, it is difficult with our schedules, but we're on the phone at least once a month. We want to make sure all the goals are clear. What is the end goal? Is it enrollment or is it student success? And really make sure the courses are taught equitably and everyone covers the same material. One of the articles was really showing that the complaints of the students when the material was different between the high school and college. And ensure all the members are rowing in the same direction. Some of my recommendations for teaching and learning, continued professional development. In my example, we used a summer teacher workshop. So we got the teachers together in the summer and really engage in a summer professional learning communities where teachers will get together on a regular basis. In our plan, we tried to get our professional learning community together about 2 hours a month to talk about what's going on in the classroom give